Welcome to The Right Focus, a podcast for writers, newbies, and veterans, and everyone in between. We're hosted by M.A. Lee with the assistance of Remy Black and Edie Rooms, all from Writers Inc. Books. Our focus is productivity, process, craft, and tools. Each episode lasts as long as it takes to fix a quick dinner, drive a short commute, or take a brisk walk. Resources and links are in the show notes. Visit us at therightfocus.blogspot.com. Now, on to this week's episode.
Hi.
Hi. There's both of you. Yay. How are you doing this afternoon?
Great. How are you?
Fine. I'm tired. I've been working hard all day. I've been working hard all week, and I'm ready for a break.
I understand. Thank you so much for letting us postpone, and with everything going on, we really appreciate it.
Life does happen, and I totally get that.
Yeah.
So why don't we start by y'all introducing yourself and talk a little bit about your podcast to start with.
Okay.
And how you handle that and how you get started into that. And then we'll go into your book that's coming out soon.
Okay. So I'm Elise Brown. I'm an author. And when I started my writing journey, Becky and I started talking about how we can get a platform so that we could hopefully sell books and get an agent and all that fun stuff that you do in the writing business. So the idea was we would create a blog in which we review books and post about them. And the blog eventually turned into a video blog, which is now turning into a podcast as well. So basically, thanks to your tips at Killer Nashville, we are going to try to get it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify soon.
And I'm Becky Brown. I am Elise's mother-in-law. And so that's one thing that makes our blog a little unique is that we are daughter-in-law and mother-in-law, and we get along very well and everything. So I don't think I meet the typical mother-in-law.
No, not scary. We're good.
We're all good. But we started this in July of 2020. And that's when we just started the Couple of Bees Read, and we talked about names and things. And the way the name came about is that we've both been educators, and we've both been in middle school and high school and all that. And sometimes you get called Mrs. B, and that can be a good thing or a bad thing, And
I used to tell my students, you can call me Miss B as long as it doesn't end with an H.
That's right. So we kind of played off on all of that because I'm Becky Blanton Brown, all B's, and she's Elise Brown and everything. And so, here we are, and we just, mother-in-law, daughter-in-law that like to read and review, and that's how we came up with it.
And what do you do typically when how do you pick a book, and then how long do you give yourselves to read it, and then what do you do when you're presenting it?
So we typically pick just what we want to read. We will occasionally have authors reach out over email and request that we review the book. And if it is one that interests us, we will pick it up and review it. But we are very careful because, not every book is our taste.
Right.
And we want to review fairly. And if we pick up a book, say I'm not super into like epic fantasies. So if someone pitches an epic fantasy to me, I know I'm going to be already kind of biased against it. So that's not what I would pick up. And it's, no offense to the genre, it's just I want to be able to give a 5-star review if I can. Because we're all about wanting to help authors and promote their work.
Yeah. And that's another thing. I mean, if you go back and read our blogs, we started out just doing like writing them and putting them on the blog. That's how we did. And then about a year ago, or a little over a year ago, we started with the YouTube. And we changed it up a little bit. And
that's when we started what we call the weekly wine, which is the she is actually a wine.
I'm a wine consultant
Wine
with Scout and Cellar Wines. Yes. And so we always review a Scout and Cellar wine. We're clean crafted wines. And sometimes I try to match it with a book, like one that I just reviewed this past week. They drank Chardonnay, and the two best friends always drank Chardonnay. So we had a Chardonnay to pair with the book I reviewed. And
Oh, that was neat.
we call it our wine and book pairings.
yes. So and it's fun. And I will be honest, if I don't like a book, if I can't give a book a 5-star, you will not see a review from me on it. And part of that is because I want to be positive and I want to support authors. And I mean, I know how much Elise puts into, they're going to say, what is she talking about? How much she puts into all of her writing. I mean, and her first book that's going to come out in June, we started this blog back in 2020. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's when I first read the first full copy of Chase Harlem. So we're talking, it's taken 5 years, and I don't know how many rewrites. I don't know how many different versions of Chase Harlem I've read and all of that, but and so I know they work hard, and maybe it's just that it just didn't click with me, but I just want to be encouraging, and that's what we want our blog to be, is encouraging. And so if we don't like a book, we're not going to talk about it on the blog. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it is. So
that is the way it is. I try to follow Thumper's advice. If you can't say nothing nice, don't say nothing at all.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
Because I had to write too many bad comments on students' essays. When you would start up, you would talk about this was good, this was good, this was good, but
I get that. I'm still getting that. I started out I was a high school English and theater teacher for 11 years. Mm-hmm. And now I teach freshman English at the University of Alabama. Mm-hmm. And there's still times I have to be like, hey, we need to fix this.
Right.
So. And sometimes after reading some essays, it can be hard to be positive. So when I read for enjoyment, I need to enjoy it.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. That is the role of the teacher. We spend so much time reading things that are really, they don't make us happy. So in our own personal reading, we want happiness.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. Even if that happiness makes us overwrought as we're getting through it. It's kind of like, I chose to cry through this book.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, you'll read the tearjerkers. I don't like to cry in books.
Yeah.
I won't read the tearjerkers.
It's funny. No, she will read like horror and stuff, and I don't like a lot of that. I love women's contemporary, but I will say this, the genres I read have really opened up for me since we started, the blog. And now I will read things that I normally probably would not have read in the past, and I have enjoyed them. So.
And she'll get me to read some of hers, but the ones you've recommended, like the Book of Flora Lee, and
so
any Heather Weber book, by the end of it, I'm sobbing. Yeah. But they're tears of joy. But at the same time, I'm like, I've got to build these up. They don't I just don't have a lot. So I need to build them up and then get ready for a cry.
Yeah.
Okay. This whole series started as a talk about technology and what technology writers use. What technology do you use for your podcast? And what technology do you find most helpful when you're writing, from the beginning to the very end of the process?
So for the podcast, we use basically my laptop or your phone. Mm-hmm. And then we have lights, and we're fortunate to have a space that we can do this, that the sound is really good.
And beautiful quilts.
Yes, she made them.
Thank
yes. So with this space, we're able to use my MacBook software basically to put all of our videos together. When it comes to writing, I basically just set daily goals for myself and keep track of my word count. from beginning to end. I have a process where I have to heavily outline everything. And I find that that works for me. Now, Becky, you're working on your first memoir.
This is the very first thing I've ever written.
And you found a new, what's the software you have? The planner software.
I don't know. You set it up for me.
I did.
I'm not techie at all. So she is the one that helps me. I mean, you know,
I found,
I think it's the Sisters in Crime thing with the
it's what
Pacemaker?
uses
Pacemaker?
Yeah.
That's it. That's what it's called, Pacemaker. And so we just, this, like I said, this is the first book I've written. So and it's about my faith journey and faith. And so writing it, trying to put it all down, this is something, you know, that I went through like 36, 38 years ago. So now I'm coming back to it, and you know, so we'll see. I'm doing the whatever you think called it.
Yeah, like it's technically NaNoWriMo, but we're using the Pacemaker software.
So I'm trying to write every day because I'm not used to that.
Right.
And like I didn't get all my words in today and I don't know if I will, but you know, we'll see. At least I'm writing something. I'm getting somewhere with it.
But what I always say to new authors, get the words on the page and don't beat yourself up on the days that you don't.
Yeah.
Because we have to be kind to ourselves.
Yeah.
Because publishing is not kind all the time.
No, it's not. I had a friend turn me on to Pacemaker on Monday morning. And so I set it up because I have been putting off this short story that I need to write and not doing anything with it. And so I thought, well, I'll go into that and it will help me just a little bit. And so I put it down. It said they have to write less than 500 words a day. And I thought, 500 words, that's nothing. I can knock that out. Finding an hour for that 500 words is so difficult. But knowing that I have the numbers that I need to input at the end of the day, it's almost like it drives me to make sure that it gets done in relation to everything else that gets done. So now I've carved out time specifically that before I would just let slip by.
And I'll be honest, I like the process of writing. Like it does deplete any higher brain function that I have. Like once I've written my however many words a day, I'm like, well, don't ask me any questions because the answers are on a page somewhere. Like that my brain is done. But what I'm actually having to do right now for my agent, we have a book that we're reworking to put everything in first person point of view.
Oh my, that's hard.
Oh my gosh.
Because when you wrote the book, well,
the trend in thrillers when I wrote the book was multiple points of view and third person. And now the trend is such that it's basically big best-selling thrillers, multiple points of view, first person, present tense. So based
I'm
on
not sure I could do it in present tense.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, based on some of the feedback we've gotten back, that's kind of the
hold up.
The hold up, that's like the thing we're trying to fix. But it's the hard, like anyone who says writing isn't hard, try rewriting an 80,000 word manuscript and just changing the tense.
Yeah, that's, and you know, of course I love the book. I thought it was great. I don't know what's wrong with these publishers out there. They just need to pick it up and publish it.
That's what every author says, and eventually you get your win.
I know. That's true. You did.
Yeah.
So.
What has always amazed me is you spend so much time on these books and you know them intimately. When you first finish it, after you've done your multiple drafts and you've finished the revision and you think it's good to go, you do know it intimately, and you can almost close your eyes and say, okay, in chapter 8, this and so happened in this sequence of things. But then when you start revising, it's always amazing to me, especially if you're changing things like point of view or you're changing tense, how many things hide, how many words hide that affect that point of view or affect the past tense. So are you using anything like Grammarly or Pro Writing Aid to help you spot those?
I I like I use Word, but I also read everything I write out loud.
Ah,
Like I give it a few days and then I read it out loud to my husband, bless his heart. He has
he
got
loves you dearly.
like he's gotten the me audio version of every book because I'm very good at hearing the mistakes,
Mhm.
but not always very good at catching them if I'm just reading them myself because I want to read what I think I wrote. Whereas if
Yeah.
I'm reading it out loud and kind of doing the characters' voices, then it's like, oh wait, that's not how Chase Harlem sounds. Why does she sound like that? So it does help both with grammar and just really with overall voice for a lot of my books, because especially like Chase Harlem is in Louisiana and there's so many different characters with different accents that those kind of have to be on point.
Yeah, that is.
Mhm. How did the idea for Chase Harlem come to you? Um,
So my grandfather was a detective for many years, and growing up, he would tell me these stories, and I tell people like my grandfather told me true crime stories I learned not to repeat in daycare. Um, he'd tell me these really great stories and about him and his friends solving crimes, and a lot of that inspired kind of what the Chase Harlem stories became. I started like the first draft of Chase Harlem I actually wrote in college, and it was terrible. It just it went all over the place. It didn't take place in New Orleans. And what I found is when I started teaching, I went to New Orleans with my husband for the first time and I just fell in love with the city. And for the first time in years, I was like, oh my God, Chase Harlem should be here. I should like, if I put this in New Orleans, it's going to be better. And that's what happened. The draft now has maybe 5 pages from the original draft. Like I literally picked it back up, looked at it, and I was like, well, all of this is done. Let me look at pages 1 through 5. And that's kind of how that worked out, was just being inspired by the city, the lore that is New Orleans,
mhm.
and recognizing that it's a place where these characters I'd come up with who'd been, living rent free in my brain for years could thrive, if that makes sense.
It does.
So, tell us about how you were able to get an agent and get a publisher, because it's traditionally published. Chase Harlem will be.
It will be, yes. So I got my first agent in 2021. We were on submission for a while. We were on submission
Almost
for
a year.
no, over a year,
Over
I
a year.
believe. And he called, it was right before Killer Nashville 2023.
It was
Mhm.
right.
And he called and he said, nobody wants this book. We've gotten a terrible response.
That
And
makes you feel good, doesn't it?
well, he was a very nice man. He just,
Mhm.
this was what he knew, and I understand that. And because of that, we parted ways.
Mhm.
And I was devastated. I was like, this book that I love and nobody wants it, and
I was just mad about
she
it.
was just mad about it. So then, like a couple of weeks later, the finalist list went up for the Claymore Awards, and
Yeah.
Chase Ullum was on it. So I go to Killer Nashville, and I had written another manuscript, which is the one my new agent has now, and I
Mhm.
was like desperately trying to pitch it, kind of frustrated because I've been told nobody wants Chase Harlem, yet that's the one that's gotten some attention. And then it won the Claymore Award. And I was sitting at the table with Elise Brown from Rising Action Publishing. And I had met with her and talked to her a couple of times over our time at Killer Nashville. And when I came back to sit down after getting the award, she leans across the table and she's like, send that to me.
Oh, that's so nice.
So yeah, it was great. So uh, the day we got back, or the day after we got back, I sent the manuscript to her and to basically any publisher on the Mystery Writers of America list, like approved publisher list, that did not require an agent. That's who I sent my manuscript with. And I actually got, I think, 3 offers and one very close call with another publisher. Alex was my second, Rising Action was my second offer, and Alex is just, she's awesome. We got on the call and she's like, I love this character. I love this book. I don't want to change anything. This is what I want to publish. Let's get this show on the road, kind of deal. And she just really believed in my vision. And basically I got really lucky. And then after that was well on its way. For my other mystery I'd written, I was still pitching to agents. And eventually, again, I got an offer from one really good agent who I was excited about, let the other agents know. And this is after over 100 rejections from agents. So don't give up. Like I literally had a book that was going to be published in a year and still was, I mean, I was getting hundreds of rejections. And finally get a yes, and reached out to the other agents, and Rachel Beck from Liza Dawson Associates reached out to me and said, I love this, we need to talk. So our conversation went really well. She's still so in love with that book I wrote, and has been, submissions are hard because it's a lot more rejection, but she's really just been just the soldier in the front line representing my book, even at times where I'm like, Rachel, let me write something else. I have written something else. I'm like, let's pitch this one. She's like, no, we're going to pitch this one, then we'll pitch that one, but we're going to pitch this one. I believe it. Like she's just been such a blessing. It's been pretty cool.
Yeah. It's and that particular manuscript, of course, I love it too. And I guess some people think I'm biased because it's Kayla's writing, but if I don't like something in it, or I think there's a problem, I mean, I will tell her, because I want her to put her best, her best product out there, because that's the only way someone's gonna take it. So I mean,
that sounds like a really good first reader.
Yeah.
You want a critique. And a critique is intended to be helpful.
And she will give me, the only time you gave me like harsh feedback, I wrote this scary story that got published on a podcast.
That one freaked me out.
Yeah, she just, wow. She's sitting there reading it, and I look over and her eyes are this big, and she looks up at me. She's like, I do not like this.
It was definitely not my genre, I can tell you.
Yeah.
How could you be in the same room with her while she's reading, though? I would not be able to do that.
Because I just sit there and read.
Like, she reads something else and I read some stuff. And
like, I just, it's not in my brain. Now, we went to the beach when you were reading the last manuscript I handed over. And there were a couple of times I'm like edging, like I'm in the back seat, she's in the front, and I'm like edging over the seat, like, hey, what do you think? What part are you at? What are you doing? Like,
yeah, if I laugh, she'll go, what was funny? What was funny? And I'll be like,
and then you tell her, and she goes, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Making sure it's something I wrote. Okay.
So the second book that you're currently working on with the agent is not a sequel to the Chase Harlan book.
No. So when I signed with Rising Action, I did sign a 2-book deal. So I've already written the second book, and we've already gotten the production schedule for it. It's coming out September
15th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
2020.
2 in 1 year.
No. It'll be the next year. 2020.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. July 17th for the first one of 2020. June 17th.
June 17th.
This is why she's here. I don't remember things. But June 17th, 2025 for the first one, and then the sequel is September 15th, 2026.
Yes. That one is Chasing Phantoms.
Right. Well,
that's clever.
they've approved the title yet.
Oh. Okay,
It's
maybe I shouldn't
the
have said that.
Untitled sequel.
Sorry.
But in your brain, it's that.
That's what it is.
That's the
That's the working
title.
title.
But we have also just pitched the third one. Like I wrote the full outline for the third Chase Harlem.
And I'm going to tell you, it's
And
going to
so-
be the best one. I mean, I have no doubt they're going to pick it up because just the outline itself. Yeah, I mean, I just read the outline and I was like, oh wow. I mean, I can totally see this, being.
Isn't it
Video.
nice having a cheerleader in your corner?
Yes, it is.
Right. No, truly, it will be the best of the three. I know it will. Mhm.
I'm probably gonna cry writing it.
Yeah.
Actually, we'll see.
That'll be a good thing, though. Because if you cry, then you hope that the readers will cry at that same point. They'll have that emotional investment.
Yes, I know there were times in the one my agent's pitching, which is High Tides and Homicides. I call it my beach thriller.
Mm-hmm.
There were points that I cried in that one. It was just like, it's okay, I gotta finish the chapter.
Yeah, it was really great because it's should we say where it's based in?
I mean, I don't know. A publisher hasn't picked it up. They may move it. I don't know how publishing works.
Anyway, well, it's based in
Flow.
And see, Fort Morgan is like the most haunted space in America, kind of thing, So, so it has a little
little ghosty side.
Yeah, it has a little bit of that in there, and it has a little romance, but not really romance. Kind of just
there's some things that happen.
Some hints there, and then of course there's a lot of murder going on, and and murder and mayhem happening there. So yeah.
Do you see this becoming like a second series?
I would love to make it a second series. With Chase Harlem, I had the complete trilogy outlined.
Mm-hmm.
Because my agent at the time said this might help sell it. With this one, I have a light outline. So when I write, I do outlines that are like 20, 30 pages long. And it's every chapter exactly what happens. But before that, I have like what I call my skeletal outline, which is basically a beat sheet. It's like, this has got to happen, this one, this one, this one. So whereas High Tides and Homicides has a plan, it's not as thorough. But I'd love that opportunity. So
yeah, to make it. Yeah. And I love anything at the beach. So whether you're sitting on the beach, reading or sipping something, or if it's at the beach, it's good.
I prefer not be there with the murders going on, actually.
Well, I could read about it.
I'll write about it.
You write about it, read about it. Yeah.
Okay. I think, yes, we are running out of time. So tell us again, the Chase Harlem is going to be out when?
June 17th.
I don't know if you can see that.
2025.
That's what it looks like.
June 17th, 2025 is when it comes out. And
we have a launch party set at Ernest and Hadley, our local indie bookstore.
And hopefully touring some other bookstores across the Southeast.
Okay, great. Great. I'm using your cover as the thumbnail image. And
Thank you.
People should be able to see it and recognize it. I love that cover, by the way. Was that your idea, or was that the publisher's?
So no, it was not my idea. I was like, New Orleans street art, like when she asked me what I wanted, I was like, New Orleans street art's good. Maybe, I don't know. And she's like, what do you mean by New Orleans street art? And I'm like, I don't know.
Well, I have definite ideas about the cover, and I sent her pictures and things. And this is nothing what I came up with, but
I love it.
But it's great because it's kind of just capsule.
It really gets the character and the overall like vibe of the story.
That's a good word. On the front.
I love the vividness of it and the pictorial aspect.
She's making me a quilt of the cover.
That we're gonna, that's going to be our backdrop for her book signings. So
that'll be really, really good. All right. Thank you, Elise.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to The Rock Focus, a podcast for writers at all levels, hosted by Emma Lee from Writers Inc. Books, assisted by Remy Black and Edie Runes. Our focus is productivity, process, craft, and tools. Music is licensed through Audio Jungle, called Background Music Loop. Its creator is Alexander Polishchuk, known on Audio Jungle as Plastic 3. The music comes in different iterations. Show notes and resource links for this and other episodes can be found at therightfocus.blogspot.com. Write to us at winkbooks@aol.com when you have questions, comments, and speculations. We will try to answer you as quickly as possible. By the way, we will not mind your email address. That's rude. If you find value in our content, share with your writing friends or write a review. We're small beans here without the advertising budget of the big peeps, and you can make a difference. And whatever occurs, write on.